Gaining knowledge of the science of imagery leads to understanding the entire universe created by the Creator and to the creation of new and beautiful worlds. Lack of knowledge and understanding of the science of imagery leads unavoidably to unskillful interaction with the perfected natural world and to the creation of an artificial, primitive, unnatural world. Lack of knowledge of the science of imagery turns entire states and peoples into puppets, into chess pieces in the hands of those who are acquainted with this great gift. So, trying to understand the science of imagery, gaining knowledge of the science of imagery leads to understanding of the entire universe created by the Creator and to the creation of new and beautiful worlds. So, here we are back again, exploring the science of imagery, Gabriel and Ariane. And dear sister, I'm so glad to have you back for this conversation. And we just got off of a guided imagery call, one of the monthly guided imagery calls. So we were deeply immersed in some beautiful living imagery. And there is so much to share. So for everybody watching this, the intention behind these conversations is to explore the science of imagery together, right? Ariane and I are understanding and having new ideas presented to us as we talk. And our hope is that you can join along with us and we can accelerate our thought together and we can gain deeper understanding. So as we're talking, if there's anything that occurs to you that you want to share in the comments, please feel free because we're exploring all these things together. And it's an important topic for us to be discussing together. And it's such a all pervading and important one, right? Such an all important topic, as Anastasia says here in book 10. And so, yeah, we're going to get into this conversation. And I wanted to start with this quote because I really want to highlight the importance of it, right? Anastasia talks about the science of imagery all throughout the books, even before she names it. In book 2, they're talking about images and the images that people live by. And everything in the books is about imagery and images and all these things. It's all throughout the books. The books themselves contain these powerful, soul provoking, soul touching images, right? And that's how Anastasia is creating this bright world, the images of the past, the images of the future, the images of stories of people now, right? And there's so much to share there. And so as we start to understand these things and unfold them in our consciousness, we gain the power to direct our lives, to create these images, to resonate with them more strongly, and to materialize them. That's really what it is. They are living energy images in space, and they contain information and they impart information and consciousness, and they eventually become materialized through the will and the power of us, right? And so we are divine in that way, where we can take these images, we can materialize them, and we can create images together and materialize them together. And this is what she talks about, the age of the image that we pass through after the Vedic age in book 6. There was 990,000 years of the Vedic age, then 9,000 years of the age of the image, and then 1,000 years of occultism because we made mistakes in the co-creation of images, right? And she talks about the mistakes that we made. And there's a lot to unpack there, but yes, I know I just shared a lot. So Ariane, yeah, so glad to have you here and to keep exploring this with you. I mean, this is like the most interesting subject, and we have a lifetime of exploration to do with this here.
It is the most interesting subject at a really, really pertinent time because we're witnessing now the death of this old image that is on its deathbed. And like you were saying on the prior call, Gabriel, you can probably say better than I can, the death throes of this dying world, right? This
Yeah,
old
the
dying.
death throes of the dying world.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Anastasia says the images that you see on the news and in the media, right? All these fearful images and all these things, she says that they're the death throes of the dying world of this technocratic system, which is just going to cease existing soon. You know, it's already curtains for that system.
It's already curtains. And so the question is, well, that image is dying. It's giving the death throes. Now, what
Mm,
image is next? What are we going to feed into
Mm,
next? I know really incredible, beautiful, intelligent, heart-led men and women in communities all around the world who are struggling and debating with each other about what that image could be. Um, the moment, though, we bring in the earth, the moment we bring in the earth, suddenly there's this unanimous agreement that we can agree on an image together. I'm finding what I'm seeing in a
mm,
lot of these conscious communities is that we want to create a new image, but because we're not including the earth with it, we're getting
mm.
stuck on just the humans growing and evolving. But it's
Yeah.
everything. It's the trees, it's the waters, it's the animals, it's the mountains, it's the earth. Like everything is growing with us. So I love
Mm,
what Anastasia is proposing to us, and in that quote you had read there, and in the multitudes of quotes in the books, she's constantly inviting
mm,
us to consider the earth, as an extension of us, to consider the earth in a paramount way with this new image we're creating together that we're going to walk into
mm,
together. That's not dying. It's not. It's thriving. It's immaculate. It's pure.
mhm,
It's pristine. It's vibrant. It's what the Vedic ancestors lived in. So
mhm,
yeah, so it is a big subject, and we are walking into a new image and co-creating a new image together. Is
mhm.
it a new image? Well, it's the old image, that not the old image, it's the original design. So is it new in that sense? No, but it is new for us because we're used to the old
Yeah.
dying image. So,
Right. Right.
it's, yeah.
And to your point, it actually it kind of is a new thing in a way, because when in book one we start off early in the series and she's saying we've passed through the dark forces window of time, right? And so the scheduled catastrophe that was supposed to happen, and humanity would be reset after that, didn't happen. And it's the first time ever in human history in billions of years that this has ever happened. And so I actually wanted to go to book six because these cycles of time are so important. She's talking about, um, you know, the Vedic age and the cycles of history, right? She says that mankind starts in a Vedic period of history that lasts 990,000 years, and we live in paradise. We know God. We can perceive God directly through our feelings. We can talk with him directly. There is no veil between him and us. All the families live in love. There's no crime. The world is covered in domains and all these things. So 990,000 years of perfect bliss, living in harmony with the divine program. And then there's 9,000 years where we discovered that we can co-create images together, right, with the power of thought, and we can create living energy images. And then she says this affords man the opportunity to create life throughout the universe and on other worlds, and to spread this perfection throughout the universe. And then she says that, well, this is the age of the image. She describes it, 9,000 years of that. And then she says, because of mistakes that are made, I actually should read this right here. Let me see if I can find it right here. Forces of Darkness. I'm in book six right here, Book of Kin. Um, Let me just see. I'm pretty sure I should have this. We got the occult age of human life, the image age. Okay, here it is. In the image age, however, which lasted for 9,000 Earth years, mistakes were repeatedly made in the co-creation either of a single image or several images simultaneously. Interesting. A mistake occurred if there remained in the Earth's human society people with insufficient purity of thought, with an insufficient culture of feelings and thoughts. Such mistakes had the effect of obscuring the opportunity to create in the expanses of the universe and led mankind into occultism. And the occult age of human life has lasted for 1,000 years now. It began with an intensive degradation of human consciousness, ultimately, a degradation of consciousness and insufficient purity of thought, coupled with knowledge and opportunity at the highest level, would always lead mankind to a global disaster, right? And so we've averted this global disaster, and at this point, it's not going to happen to us, right? But Ariane, do you mind if I just continue a little bit here? I think this really would set the
Yeah.
conversation. Just reading a little bit here. We've passed the end of um, and as always, a disaster of global proportions was supposed to take place. It was supposed to, but the deadline has passed. We've passed the end of the occult millennium. Now it's up to everyone to take stock of their purpose, their essence, and where the mistake was made. We should help each other in mentally retracing the course of our history in the opposite direction and pinpoint the mistake. Then an era of joyous life on earth will be ushered in, an era such as no one has ever witnessed before in global history. The universe is anticipating it with bated breath and great hope. In the meantime, the forces of darkness are alive and prevalent, feverishly trying to control people's minds. But for the first time, they failed to notice the 𝚑𝚒 unusual behavior back 5,000 years ago. Um, and so she talks about a little bit further here. Um, she talks about the happy 𝚑𝚒 civilization being dormant and waking up right now. Um, but she says the most interesting thing. She says, and this happy civilization, the 𝚑𝚒 civilization, is dormant right to this day and will continue to sleep until those who are awake search out the mistake in the image creation. And that same mistake that led the Earth civilization to its present day situation. Listen to this. Once the mistake has been identified with absolute precision, the dormant ones may hear the words of those who are awake and begin to rouse each other out of sleep. Just who thought up this particular move, I cannot say. It's probably someone very close to God. And so, it's so crazy how you keep going back and revisiting the books. And it's like, I read this before. I read this like almost 10 years ago, but I didn't realize that the condition that she puts on this is that once we identify the mistake that we made in the age of the image, the awake 𝚑𝚒 people, the sleeping 𝚑𝚒 people will start to hear the words of the awake 𝚑𝚒 people, and then things will really accelerate. And so here we are, right, discussing imagery, discussing using the power of thought, co-creating images, how to do it in a pure way. And this is what we're doing, discussing the science of imagery. And who knows if this mistake has been identified yet, 30 years after the books have been published. But if it hasn't, then we're searching for it.
There's so many. I took a bunch of notes there with what you what you read through. There's very important points we're going to discuss with what you just read, and maybe we can. We're definitely going to talk about the mistake because why not? I mean, I think my feeling is we've already discovered it, and like the memory of these 𝚑𝚒 men and women, and they're already awakening. But let's definitely go there anyway. I want to go back though
Yeah,
to beginning of the share when you talked about
sure.
purity of thought. You
Hmm.
talked about purity of thought, and you talked about how there was an era of the image where men and women discovered that they can co-create images together and they would impact the world as we know it and worlds outside of Earth, right? And these images were co-created through the purity of mankind. And then because these thoughts started to get a little tainted and the intention started to get tainted and the purity started to get tainted, it propelled humanity out of that image era and into an occult era. So I think purity of thought is really good to start with, and then we can work our way up through all the other insights you just read in that reading.
Yep.
So purity of thought, if we just sit with that, everyone, and we take a moment to really think about what we just shared here, that's loaded. That's loaded. First and foremost, whoa, we can co-create together around the world outside of authority, outside of government, outside of anything outside of ourselves. We, a living man, a living woman, we can co-create together with our thought, with our God-given
Yeah.
thought, and create living imagery that transforms the planet and other planets. Like, can we just full stop here?
Yeah.
Full stop. That is a massive, 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 um, what word do I use? That is a massive statement of the power of men, the power of
Yeah.
man, the power of many men and women, and the power of thought. And how much have we taken for granted each one of these three I've just mentioned over here? You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? And of
mm,
course, so this is the era of the occult where we don't acknowledge the power of these three things. But if we were living in that image of the era, the era of the image, we would be having a totally different relationship with our thought, our pure intention, and
mm,
ourselves. It
mm.
holds me to a whole other degree of standard with the purity of my thoughts and feelings and intentions and actions. This holds me to like an almighty standard now. I'm like, yeah, whoa, I want to put that standard much higher reading this,
Yeah.
because I along with my fellow men and women can change the world with my thought. That's so incredible. It's amazing. How
Right.
empowering is that, everyone? Like, absolutely
And
incredible.
honestly, like starting there, um, there was something else that she shared here, which I remember that I wanted to read. And she talks about the images. Um, one second. So this is history. She talks about how once an image was born that desired to exercise power over other people, that's when the first wars happened. That's when people started killing each other. When an image was born that wanted to exercise control. Here it is. I found it. This is A Dormant Civilization, the chapter A Dormant Civilization in Book 6. When an image was born by a perverted consciousness upon the earth, an image which desired to exercise control over everybody, that was when the first war began. It was under the influence of this image that people started killing each other. This has happened many times on the earth just before a global disaster. But this time, for the first time, the Vedarus civilization did not enter the fray on a non material plane. And so it's interesting, like you're talking about purity of thought. She says the first moment when humans had this desire to, control each other is when wars started breaking out, right? And it's so it really it is a call and a challenge to us, right? Like to not have these desires, to be pure. And um every single one of us has to be responsible for ourselves. We all have to purify ourselves before we can come together and truly fulfill our divine purpose as the human race, right? Like it literally falls on all of us. There can't be anybody left that um you know is not joyfully participating in. And it's just a massive thing to think about, right? We're talking about the purpose of humanity here, and it starts with the purity of our thinking. We can't desire control over others. We can't all these other things, right?
Yeah, and someone might say to that, "Hey, well, if we need to purify ourselves, like look at the world. We're very toxic and we're far from purity." And what I would say to that is, yeah, well, are we not going through purification? Is this not a mass global purification in every sense of the word? This has been happening for years now, more than just a couple years. Like, we are purifying everyone. It's already happening. It's been happening for a while. And what great hope comes with that? What great hope, and
Mm,
all that the treachery is bringing us to look at the desire to purify.
mm,
I've never seen such a call to
mm-hmm,
action in my life, of seeing people reach for that desire of like, "Hey, I'm gonna put some effort here to purify the relationship with myself, my body, my family, the earth." Like, this
mm,
is like I've never seen it before. So you're reading incredible things. I'm taking so many notes here. You talked about purity of thought, and then Anastasia says it's going to change. We have to go back in history and pinpoint the mistake.
Right.
And when we find the mistake, then um, we're going to wake up this like Vidrus memory slumber that's been going on. So correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong,
she says
Gabriel.
she says the awake Vaderus will start waking up the dormant Vaderus. The dormant Vaderus will be able to hear the words of the awake ones, is what she said. And I find that to be fascinating. So she's saying pretty much the whole spark or catalyst behind reviving the dormant Vaderus civilization hinges on finding the mistake that we made in the mistake or mistakes that we made in the age of the image, right? It's a giant implication.
I've had conversations with readers and team members about the mistake. We've talked about this.
Hmm.
I think it's worth speaking about this on the podcast because we're going to
Yeah,
open up some doors here. So, you know,
let's go. Let's
and
go
yeah,
through.
yeah, we are going back to the age of the image, everyone. We're going all the way back there. This is like probably millennia ago, an era where men and women had a very wholesome thought. They collaborated together uh, with their pure intent, and they created images that shaped the world in its pure, immaculate, beautiful expression. And they lived this way for a substantial amount of time. And the land, and it was just probably heaven on earth is probably what it was. Is probably incredible.
Paradise.
Yeah, absolute paradise. And then the purity started to waver. And like you just read in that last reading there, Gabriel, you talked about the desire to have power over others started to creep in, right? So
Hmm.
someone might say, oh, well, maybe the issue is wanting to have, power over others. I'm going to invite people to go deeper. Like, let's go deeper with this. Let's go like right to the roots of what the original mistake, what like it's a really pinpointed. Those are her words actually in the book is pinpoint. She's saying get really specific. So let's do
Yep.
that. We're getting information about power over others. When I hear that power over others, I think, oh, separation, the illusion of separation. Their thought was clearly buying into that because if I want to have if I want to express power over others, it means I'm buying into the illusion of separation. I think I'm separate from them. I want to take over them. I want to control them. So that's where my thought goes. But let's keep on
Hmm.
going further. Let's really pinpoint this. Like why did those men and women start feeding into thoughts of power over others, control over others? Why? What is the root here of feeding into that thought of separation, right? It comes from there too. If we go deeper, what do we find?
Hmm. Are you asking me? Or are we
Yeah.
meditating on it together?
No, no, we can. I'll have something that's coming up, but
Hmm.
I'll check in with you if we go like much deeper.
Hmm. It's an interesting question. I think as you're talking about it, the first thing that pops up in my mind was actually the story of the priests. Like, and Anastasia said there was six individuals who appeared on the earth who had the balance of energies inside of them disturbed, and pride was predominant,
Yeah.
right? And they had pride, which made them consider themselves to be above others in some way, where they desired this power to reign over human society. And I don't know, like that's the first thing that popped into my mind, and I never really connected these concepts before. Um, so that's the first thing that I think of is actually like she talks about in human society there arose some people. Yeah, it all makes sense. Something like that. It's so interesting that in book four she tells the story of the priests and their lust for power and their pride. And then in book six, she talks about the mistakes that we made. And actually, book four, they're all learning about imagery. Her forefathers teaching them about imagery. And they're wondering, how do we create powerful images like you? And they can't, and they're struggling. And he says that you can only create what you have inside, right? Essentially, that's what he's telling them. And he says, one who entreats, he speaks to the high priest. He says, one who entreats is not a creator, right? One who tries to take power and demand from others is not a creator himself. Um, so this is what pops into my mind as you're speaking.
Okay, so I'm gonna take that thought and we're gonna run with it here. So I'm gonna transport myself into the era of the image, and I have this epic connection with a planet of people, and we're building heaven together. And now I start to inwardly begin to think of myself as different, and I feel pride for who I am, and I start to compare myself to others, and then I start to judge others, and then I start to want to I have this inner calling to even control these other people because I'm different than them, and um yeah, I need to show them what to do because I'm special and different. And so I'm putting myself in that right now. And if I follow that
Hmm.
chord even deeper, where did that initial thought, what was the initial thought that took me from my community of people who were co-creators with me in this beautiful heaven? What was that initial thought that started to get me to teeter? So this is a discussion I've had with
Right.
quite a few people, and like one of them, um, we're going to talk about wine in a moment here. He's got an awesome answer here. I'm going to talk about my initial one.
Hmm.
Um, I had a lot to say about the chapter. I forget which book. The chapter where the deceitful soldier went into the settlement and deceived the council elders, and because he deceived them, he was able to infiltrate them, the settlement, which was like really held in a really pure, pristine image and energy. He was able to infiltrate
Hmm.
that and kind of destroy the integrity of the settlement, right? I forget which book that was in, but I had conversations with people about like what how on earth can these Vedrus elders not see the deceit? Like these are really connected, psychic, dialed in people who see through souls and like see through lies, and they see the truth. How on earth could that have slipped through and caused the end of this era of the
I
Vedrus,
think
right?
this
How
is
could
book 8.2, by the way.
Yes, book 8.2. There you go. Yeah. Like how on earth? And what I was thinking, I was like, maybe they got complacent. Maybe they were so comfortable in their
Hmm.
heaven. They were so comfortable in it that they just, kind of let their watchful eye and heart slip a little bit, like, and even
Possibly.
then, yeah, like even then, let's take that and then and go deeper and take it deeper and deeper and deeper. And so what our friend Wyatt had suggested, he's like, doesn't it go back to doubt? Doesn't it go back to doubt? Like doubting, doubting creator's original design, doubting the love of creator's original design, right? Because what would take me being this incredible co-creator with a planet full of people, we're creating heaven, what would take me from that to, oh, I'm like something different and I'm going to control these people? And there must have been a thought in my mind at some point where I'm like, creators design is not all that it's it's demonstrating itself to be. There must be something different. There must be more. It must be better. It must be, you know, and that's a pride thing, I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it better. Or that's definitely ties into pride, into power. And I
Hmm.
feel like doubt brings me a lot deeper into what the heck this mistake could be,
Yeah.
you know?
You know what it hits for me as you're talking about doubt. Like I'm here glancing at book 4, that chapter in Extraordinary Power, where Anastasia's forefather and the priests are in the temple. Um, and the priest calls the meeting And he starts telling his plans. Over the ages, we shall circulate among the people a multitude of treatises at which everyone may marvel and think that it all has been set forth, right? And talking about how they're going to deceive people and all these things. But I see here at a certain part, he starts getting really impatient, and that whole
Mm,
element of doubt starts to creep in. He says,
yeah.
there's one question requiring our urgent attention. Over the past 19 years, we've learned how images are created. Any one of us is now capable of creating an image that can change the world, destroy or strengthen a state, and yet the secret of the power itself has never been revealed. Can
Mm,
any of you tell me why the images each of us creates vary in power? And in terms of time, why does it take us so long? And the priests were silent. None of them knew the answer. The high priest went on, ever so slightly raising his voice, and his scepter trembled ever so slightly in his hand as he told those assembled, in the meantime, there is one in our midst who is capable of creating images very rapidly, and the power of these images remains unsurpassed. For 19 years now, he's been teaching us, but there remains much that he has yet to tell. Now we must realize that we are not all equal among ourselves. Look at that, the doubt and the power. And he's like anxious. It matters not who holds what rank among us. He's afraid. But everyone should know that there is one among us who holds the power to control in concealment, unseen in his sway. With power of the images he's capable of creating, he can elevate or slay. One among us is capable of deciding the fate of nation states. I, as high priest, am empowered to alter the balance of power. The doors of the temple wherein we sit are closed. A loyal guard stands outside the door and will open it at my command. And then it's just so interesting. You're talking about doubt, right? And then there's this conversation a little further about how pretty much, you know, he tells the secret. He says it's in an egg, and then the high priest gets really mad. It's in an egg? What egg? What are you talking about? He's getting mad. And then the priest says, her forefather says, whatever you feel yourselves to be, that is what you will bring forth. And the high priest gets angry. He's shouting, I feel I'm a creator. Tell us how to create the image that is stronger than all the rest. And her forefather says, that's not the truth. You yourself do not believe what you're saying, right? You don't believe what you're saying. You doubt. You don't have confidence. You doubt, right? And it's just so interesting, and the high priest replies, "This is the last thing I'll say. How can you know what power of faith I have?" The high priest says. Her forefather says, "One who creates will never bring himself to entreat. One who creates is capable of giving of himself. You, on the other hand, are one who entreats, which means you already are well within the shell of unbelief." I actually
whoa.
didn't even know he said that. I forgot he said well within the shell of unbelief, but it's like right where you're saying, right?
Oh my God, that's so powerful what you just read.
Holy. I know it's hitting me too.
I have like a current
Whoa.
energy in my body right now. I feel
Yeah, me
it's very,
too.
yeah.
Wow, that's intense.
So
You are
in essence,
already well within the shell of unbelief.
yeah. Yeah, in essence, what the priests want this exceptional capacity to co-create worlds and worlds on other planets.
Hmm.
But if they want it, they'll have to purify. If they want it, they're going to have to purify themselves and not to be in the role of
Hmm.
priesthood. They would have to purify and be in the role of a living man and woman. So what they're asking for, they don't actually want, and they can't actually have it
Hmm.
as long as they're attached to that priestly identity. They can, I'm sure they could make the switch, but they'd have to do some serious purification. And
Right.
like and stop wanting to control people and stop wanting to alter people's consciousnesses and genetics and like, that would have to be a major shit. They could, I believe in them, I believe they could, but man, like what you're asking for, priests, you don't actually want. You can't have it. Not
It's
there.
it's like it's like I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the high priest during like this moment, and I'm thinking of his words and like how angry and frustrated he was that
Yeah,
he couldn't create images like Anastasia's forefather. And
yeah,
he probably was watching Anastasia's forefather create these images, and at some point he didn't believe that he was capable of doing the same, you
yeah,
know? Like he compared himself and he's like, whatever that guy has, I don't, like somewhere I don't. And I need to demand it of him or take it from him. Right. It's like he's trying to steal his consciousness or his power or something. And it's so interesting, like these little insidious like traps of the dark forces and thought of like, it's seemingly innocuous, like he just has a little bit of doubt for a moment or hesitation of his capability, then it turns into full blown power grab, kill the forefather, and all this stuff, like, and he is trying to pull, he doesn't believe in his own inner power or his own capability, and his doubt and faithlessness in himself, um is the result of all this. He's seeing the grand images that her forefather creates, and he just is comparing and doesn't believe in himself.
yeah, yeah. And these dark priests are in that dark priest role because they doubted the pure design of creator to begin with. Like that's what got them there. They doubted they doubted the design. They were like, no, we can do this better. We can do this better. Creator, your design is not complete enough or whatever enough. We're going to do a better job here and work with
Right.
your
It's
creation in a different way.
remember, like, I it's so interesting, like, because this conversation happens with the high priest and the priests and Anastasia's forefather, then the whole events of his, death in the tower, and then they bury him with high honors. He sings, the forefather singing these songs while he's on the tower. The priests are afraid that he's going to expose them, but he winds up singing these joyful songs. And Anastasia says the priests were in the crowd calculating how many years he was creating the future for, and how many millenniums he was creating the future for while he was singing right there, and they so when the high priest goes to bury her forefather, they bury him with high honors in a secret temple. And the high priest is like, has this monologue with himself, and he's like, who knows how many years you were creating the future for. And he has this little inner conversation that he's like trying to understand the science of imagery, and he says, we will guard this until the day comes where we can understand these things, like in the future. And then, what was I gonna say here? Um, so, and then history goes, and I forget my train of thought, but all of this happens, and they still didn't figure it out all this time later. And then eventually, I remember they have the Anastasia says that their motivation was to hold humanity pretty much in a chokehold, to uh, compel God to speak to them. I guess they still hadn't fully figured out the science of imagery and the secrets of the universe and all this. So they tried to exercise power over everyone else to compel God to speak to them. But it was the same idea. Like they just couldn't look inside to get it on their own, right? They couldn't look inside themselves to believe in themselves, right? I feel like that same idea of unbelief carried through way past the death of her forefather and for like centuries and millennium afterwards.
So what I'm hearing you say, Gabriel, is that the priests themselves didn't believe, perhaps they didn't believe in their, yeah, in their worthiness to live in a heaven in that original design creator had. Perhaps it was a thing of worthiness, and perhaps it was also tied into that power struggle to the power and control, wanting to control others as well. Like, but really, a fundamental factor is a lack of belief, is doubt. And it's in this book, everyone, book 4, where Anastasia talks about how the priests wanted the science of imagery vaulted. They did not want
Vaulted.
anybody vaulted for millennia. They did not want anybody to know, to speak these
Yep.
words, to have these conversations, And guess what? We're having them now. Game is over.
on,
We're
on
talking about
YouTube.
it on YouTube. Yeah, yeah. We're pinpointing original mistake, and those are instructions. We got the instructions in the book. Readers, pinpoint the mistake. Go find the original dilemma, and and an awakening is going to happen as a result of that. And as we've seen, Gabriel, it's already been happening in the community substantially. We've been watching this for years now unfold. And
Mhm.
it's not just our community, it's many communities that have this pure heart and pure intent the way this community does, right? There's many of us. So we're all over the world. Um, yeah. And I feel that this conversation and these thoughts we're putting out there right now with this episode, it's going to propel even more in motion. It's going to propel even more purity of thought to be had and to be desired. And um, like I see the shadow
Mm.
of the priests as because it doesn't believe in itself, it almost wants to it wants to consume everything. It loses its mind. It
Hmm.
goes crazy. It goes mad. It goes so
Crazy.
mad that it takes over a world, generations of people, billions and trillions of people. Like
Yeah.
that's full on madness, and it will never insatiate, and it'll never satiate itself. It'll constantly um, be in a hall of shadow. It will never find the light in that direction on that path ever,
Right.
ever. And this is the power of purity, everyone. This is how much it is like really what the priests are screaming for is purity. That's what they're screaming for. That's what they're looking for. They're just looking
Hmm.
for the engine of the car in the glove compartment and freaking out because they can't find it there. Like they're
Right.
looking they're looking in the totally wrong direction.
They're begging for it outside of themselves.
Yeah,
And
screaming.
Anastasia's forefather, to God bless him, like to his credit, what a great man. He's even at the moment he realizes what's about to happen to him, he still is trying, he's honestly trying to tell them that, it's inside of you and it depends on who you are, right? Who you feel yourself to be, that's what you're going to create, right? And it's so interesting that like he's summoning them to an inward journey of discovery, you know, of go inside yourself, figure out who you are, right? Purify your thoughts, understand things from inside. And you know what's crazy as you were saying that, like I I don't know why this popped in my head, but I started thinking of the early part of book 4 where Anastasia's talking about the creation story. And the earth hasn't been materialized yet. God is still there in the void of space, and the other universal entities are communicating with him, and they ask like, what are you doing, what are you creating? And he responds, my dreams, I won't betray them. Inside of himself he was shining, right? His dreams and all the light were inside of him. He said, I see the eagle flying in its bold ascent, teaching its young how to fly, and I see the ant crawling across the dirt. And but the universe was still filled with some kind of darkness externally, but inside of his consciousness everything was alive and full of light, and he saw all his dreams, right? And it's kind of interesting because if we're made in the image of God, if we're made like him, the implication is that all of the dreams of creation, all the bright things begins within us, in our thoughts and our dreams, right? It's another idea of purification, right? And I'm also reminded of book 3. I remember in the chapter mediums, Anastasia says when you feel the the desire and the thirst for purification, you can know that you are clearly hearing the thoughts of light, right? The thoughts of the forces of light, right? And I don't know, it, the idea of purification, it's an infinite thing, and it's wildly interesting, right? Because God's mind is the most pure mind that exists. He's remarkably, unfathomably pure, unbelievably powerful. He wields all the power of the universe, but yet he's meek and gentle and pure and kind. in some kind of unfathomable way. You know, he's the mightiest and most gentle being that exists. He's this perfect unification of both things, right? And ideally, that's what we're supposed to be too, right? To hold tremendous power, but also to be a complete benevolent force with no anger and no desire to exercise power. God's got all the power in the universe. And what does he do? Shine the sun on us every single day, unfold the flowers, and make the birds sing, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually opened up this page while you were speaking, and this is a perfect addition to what you just said, Gabriel. So it's book 4, page 28 at the very, very top of this edition, the black cover edition. So, my son
Yeah.
is the image and likeness of me. He includes himself particles of all the diverse energies of the universe. He is Alpha and Omega. He is creation. He is the realization of the future. He is the realization of the future.
The
Henceforth, and for
realization of the
all,
future.
that's huge. We could just sit with that right there, that statement right there. Henceforth and for all time still to come, neither I nor anyone else shall be able to change his destiny without his will, and that he wills
Mm,
for himself, all that he wills for himself will be allowed to him. Whatever he conceives, provided it is not conceived in vanity, will turn into reality. And so here it is, everyone. Here is an invitation to remember with us that Vedrus, that image era, and to awaken that memory with us and to be co-creators again. And we are already co-creating like we did millennia ago. We're already doing it, co-creating an era that reflected the original design, and we will succeed in doing
mm,
this. It's already well on its way, and we will do this on other planets the way it was intended to be. Yeah.
right. You know what a quote that you just brought up.
Yeah.
And like as you're saying that, that last portion there, whatever he conceives, provided it is not conceived in vanity, will turn into reality. This, I feel, is like a direct answer to what the high priest was so angry about, that
Yeah.
he couldn't create images that would create the future, and they wouldn't materialize as fast as her forefathers.
Mm.
Whatever he conceives, provided it's not conceived in vanity, will turn into reality, right? And so Anastasia's forefathers' dreams and images weren't conceived in vanity, they were pure. And so they materialized quickly and with power and had great influence. But the high priest, he was concerned with other things. And so his images just wouldn't work, right? And so they had some power, but they weren't as strong as Anastasia's forefather. And I feel like I feel like this was what he was trying to say to the high priest. Whatever you conceive, provided it's not conceived in vanity, will turn into reality. Like, that's incredible.
It's huge. This is talk about talk about like it's absolutely incredible. Doesn't this help dispel our roots of doubt? I'm very called to hold every little particle of doubt in me and to like acknowledge it, hold it, love it free. I'm called to gather as much as I
Mm,
can, every filament and cord in memory and word and thought of
mm,
my doubt and hold it and love it free, because I know that if I do this, I'm going to continue purifying myself, and I'm going to continue um, really fortifying my ability to co-create with other men and women of like-heartedness and transform the world
mm,
as we know it on the most fundamental
mm,
level. You can't get more fundamental than thought, for God's sakes. It's like the most
mm.
fundamental level, and now we know it's the most powerful one.
Wow. Wow. You know, my God. And It's just so interesting, right? Whatever he conceives, provided it's not conceived in reality, will in vanity will turn into reality, right? It's I don't know. It's a call to purify our thought. It's a call to um, realize the true nature of everything. And actually, Ariane, you have the book open. It looks like you want to share something. Do you want to share something? Because I had something from book 10 I wanted to share.
I'm going to share one more thing because I just opened it
Please.
up and like it just perfectly aligned to what you just said and what I just read.
Yep. Let's do it.
We're onto something here, Gabriel, because this just completely puts the nail, like we just hammering the nail right here. This is page
Yeah.
47. It's the same book, okay?
Uh-huh.
Before.
Yeah.
I ask you, my son, to create. You have been given the power to create in this space on Earth as well as on other worlds. What you think up in your
Mm.
dream will be turned into reality. You need not doubt. It's all there.
Oh,
You need not
you
doubt.
need not doubt.
Only one thing I ask
Only
of you,
one thing.
do not try and figure out by what power it all comes about. And so that's a whole other rabbit hole we
Mm.
could go down. I don't think we should go down that, but like it's
Nope.
all there. Yeah, literally the words are right there. Words are right there
Mm.
right from creator's mouth.
Right. Look at that. You need not doubt. Don't be skeptical of what you're trying to create. And then don't
Yeah.
try to figure out how it's all happening, right? Figure out the mechanics of everything and right, because then that leads into control, right? That leads into I directly influence all of this. I have control over this. And that's not what God wanted for us. He didn't want us to think that way. He just wanted
No.
us to create and to continue creating.
Yes.
Wow. And it's like it's so subtle, right? All the wording in the books, it's like, such little things, but that little comma, you need not doubt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What you think up in your dream will be turned into reality.
Yeah. And I'll see a lot of
Mm,
people will doubt that. See, even a part of me, there's a part of me inside that's doubting that too. I think we've been really programmed and you know, um, yeah, we've been really programmed to doubt. And now we know this is the absolute worst thing. This is the heaviest, darkest thing we can hold in our body, in our heart, in our mind. Am I really made in the image of Creator? Yes. Can I create
mm,
worlds like Creator? Yes. Can I create worlds on
yeah.
other planets like Creator? Yes. Is the original
Yep.
design of this planet like immaculate, pure, pristine, and heavenly? Yes.
Hmm.
Does Creator really love me and everything? Is this all created from a space of immaculate love? Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
You know,
And
yeah.
like it ties into I had this realization, I don't know when, but like Anastasia describes in book 4 the creation of the material universe and then the earth and all these things and then ultimately Adam and Eve and the beginning of human civilization and all of life, right? And um talking about, co-creation and being God's child, right? And creating life on the earth, infinitely perfecting life on the earth, but then also creating and perfecting life throughout the universe. Well, if we go all the way back to the beginning, like let's talk about spreading life on other planets. Think about what God did when he made the earth, right? He was dreaming, first of all. He had these beautiful, bright dreams. He dreamed of the earth and the water and the birds and the grass and the sun and the moon and the stars. Unbelievably beautiful dreams he had, right? He's dreaming and he materializes it by some unbelievable force. He turns it into a material creation, right? But he starts by creating the earth and the water and the sun and the stars and the grass and the flowers and all these beautiful things. And then after creating this space, he puts his beloved son and daughter, right? Like he puts Adam and Eve. Adam lives for quite a while and then he creates Eve and they live together in this perfect space. And then what do? They wind up co creating. a child in this beautiful space that's filled with love. And then if we think about it, that is exactly what we do when we are creating kins domains. First, the image of our domain exists in our mind. It's an image, it's a dream. It's not on the material plane yet, just like God when he dreamt of the earth, right?
Wow.
It's the same process. You know, God dreamt of the earth and the garden and the water and all that. And then he said, I create the space first. So he creates the space. And so we have the image of our domain mentally, and then we materialize it. So first we begin with the space, and then love begins to dwell there. A man and a woman live there, and then they give birth to a new and more perfected co-creation. They have a child, right? Just like Adam and Eve did, just like God did when he created Adam and Eve, right? He created a space and then gave birth in the space, right? And then passed on that space to be further perfected in perpetuity, right? And we literally, by creating a domain, retrace the exact steps that he took when he made everything.
Oh my, I've never had that thought before. Did that
Yeah.
just come to you now?
No, I've had that like for years. But it blows my, and so like when I talk about kins domains and I give presentations and stuff, I try to, because there's a lot of talk in the series about us being made in the image of God and being creators and then creating life on other planets. Well, it starts with the same idea of like we begin with an image of life on another planet or an image of life here or something like that. And then we materialize it, through our will and effort over time. God said, "Don't worry how it all comes about. That's secondary. It's the dream and the images are primary." And so then we created and so yeah, it's interesting. We literally are gods, and we literally are taking the same steps that he took, right? So creating a domain is like the most divine thing that we could do, and then we're retracing his steps and retaking his actions, the same things that he did.
Ugh, I just want to sit with this. I'm so inspired by what you just
Yeah.
said. That's so beautiful. We're retracing
Right.
the original creation design steps.
Step by step, just as it was listed out in the beginning of book 4 here in the creation story. And it's so interesting because like we just got off this other imagery call. And I shared this too, that on Vladimir McGree's website, there's some blog post from like 2018, I think. If it's not 2018, it's 2020. But he said that he saw Anastasia's grandfather around that time. And grandfather goes back and tells Vladimir, he's like, you need to go and reread co-creation. Um, and because there's a lot that you didn't understand. And it's like, this is the dude who wrote the book. And so when I read that, I was like, I didn't venture the thought that I understood everything inside co-creation, but I hearing it from grandfather to tell that to Vladimir, someone who had already had so much experience and understanding, like urging him to go back. I was like, if it applies to Vladimir, it applies to me. So let me
Yeah.
go back and read this, and especially the creation story because it's so multifaceted and layered. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. One day it just occurred to me, but and this is like understanding the proper relationship of things. How are we actually God's children, right? Like what do we do that's so similar to him? And then it's interesting because then we can create life in the same way throughout the universe. We conceive of it in our dreams and then we bring it about, right? And like that's what makes us and actually a little thing from book 10. I just want to just like jump in
Do it.
here.
Do it.
Um there's a little thing. Do, 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 do. Man himself is, in fact, an image that has taken material form. And since he is a materialized image, man himself can use his thought to create and materialize to create and can materialize images. This is where his universal power, a power unsurpassed by no one and no thing, lies. If this or that person doesn't recognize the capabilities within him that have been given him by the creator, then that person himself blocks his lofty power and falls under the influence of other images and materializes their thoughts until finally he destroys himself, his family line, his state, and the whole planet. Oh my God. The artificial technocratic world was also created by man using the energy of an image suggested to man by his antipodes. The technocratic world is fragile and transitory. Even the most advanced car, building, or any other object of the artificial world disintegrates with each second, and within but a few years turns to dust. Worse still, into waste products harmful for man. But there's so much here in book 10 to get into about imagery. But this falls back. If this or that person doesn't recognize the capabilities within himself that have been given him by the creator, then that person blocks his lofty power, right? And and all these bad things happen. It's like doubt again, fear, uncertainty, right? Like if you don't believe in who you actually are, it's like the high priest being mad that he can't create these images. It really, it's amazing that you brought up this idea of doubt. And well, anyway, yeah, I'll stop there.
Oh man. So here we have a planet of,
Whoa.
yeah. Here we have a planet of mighty, mighty galactic creators.
Yeah,
Mighty
right.
galactic co-creators who are it's painful to look at. I'm feeling pain in my heart to see
Mm,
these godly men and women uh, that are functioning at a fraction of their capacity to create and co-create and to live and to thrive. It's like a minuscule, minuscule, minuscule thing. And I guess, we had to learn, our collective brothers and sisters, we had to learn some things. And I see these priests being so upset that they can't create these living godly images, that it's like a punishment almost to the rest of us. It's like, well, if we can't, then you guys, you know because
yeah. If I can't have
our
it, you can't have it.
precisely, yeah, our way is more evolved, so this is how it's going to be. But the thing is it's not working. It hasn't been working. Someone might say it has been working. It's been working for millennia, and we've been, in shadow for millennia. But it's not, in the end, it's actually not working in the end, because look at what's happening now. We're getting out of this. It's never going to happen again. And what Anastasia says about these priests, man, whoa, remember what she says about them? About when their
Mm,
time comes, when they actually transition, they're not going to be recycled back into the earthly plane, and they're going to be transported to, that's a hefty statement, transported
yeah,
to a, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. It's actually you're I think you're talking about that quote from book 3. I think it's one of my favorite little sections that's really overlooked, I think, um, by a lot of people. And I forget exactly which chapter, but it's in the middle of book 3. And it's Vladimir. He's like quoting something that Anastasia told him. And he says, what she said is that the world, there is some kind of acceleration of energies that's happening, of universal processes. And then he says that Anastasia said that essentially anyone who is going against the program of life, right? Anyone who is their profession harms the earth, or they're involved in manufacturing all these awful chemicals or things that man puts into himself, and hurts man and hurts the earth and hurts life. He said those people would be subjected to trials, and then first in the form of like financial difficulty, and then rejection by society, and then eventually things would get worse and worse for them, and Anastasia says they would have to forsake life for 9,000 years in order to be regenerated as healthy beings again. So that's like a wild statement. And then what else just popped into my head is that 9,000 years is a really particular length of time because that's the length of time that she said the age of the image was.
Mm,
It's the same exact length of time that
interesting.
the age of the image lasts.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know because right, the word 9,000 years is only mentioned twice in the series, and it's in both those contexts.
Interesting.
So that's interesting. But yeah, she said they would forsake life in order to be regenerated as healthy beings after 9,000 years.
So
Whoa.
essentially, there's absolutely no way that these cycles can continue to happen. There's no way at all. And everything is in its course to go back to the original design. And that's phenomenal news for us. And one might say, yeah, but I don't see it and I don't feel it and I'm still in fear. Yeah, we hold you. We hold you, man, in feeling that because the shadow is compelling. It's compelling and it's been there for millennia. Let's have some compassion for
Mm,
ourselves here. You know, generations and generations before us have been struggling with this too. It is compelling. However, what's most compelling, way more compelling, is the pure pristine
hmm.
image. That is way more compelling. When I focus on the pure pristine image, especially with others,
Yep.
I euphoria. I've actually gone into euphoric states with the live global imagery calls, like full on, and I have tears pouring down my face without actually
Mm,
crying, like tears pouring down, and I feel like there's like incredible light, almost like light beings in my home and around me, and like incredibly
for
beautiful
sure.
paranormal things happen. It's just a beautiful peace, beautiful euphoria, beautiful states of love. That's pretty compelling. Can I give that to myself? Am I worthy of feeling that, of holding that image, of communicating with it? This is an important question to ask because a lot of people might falter on that. Other people might not be sure about that, and that's okay too. If you feel that, that's totally
Mm,
okay. The doubt is real. As you're hearing, as we're reading the passages and having this discussion, it looks like it's a chronic wound that has been here for millions and billions probably of years. It's this chronic infection that's caused all of the hardship. It goes back to that doubt. So let's have
mm,
some compassion. Yeah.
yeah. And something I'm in book 10 here, and Anastasia is talking a lot about the science of imagery here. And this is actually back in the section of where I read in the beginning, where she talks about gaining knowledge of the science of imagery leads to understanding the entire universe created by the creator and to the creation of new and beautiful worlds. And um, Vladimir asks her such an interesting question. He says, but Anastasia, after all, images can be positive and negative. How are we supposed to figure out which of them bears useful information and which is misinforming us, perhaps for personal gain? She says, through your own self, Vladimir, and through your own image, you will discern the value of any information. And he goes, you mean every person has an image? She says, why, of course, Vladimir. Every person has his own image. Each differs strikingly from the others. And then Vladimir replies, were every person to preserve his primeval image, then tell me. Oh, no, never mind. I messed that up. Um, she asks him, were every person to preserve his primeval image, then tell me, Vladimir, how would the world now look? Vladimir's like, primeval image, that means every person has a primeval image. What was it like? She says, divine, such is the way our parent, the creator, did create it in his inspired impulse. And Vladimir says, our primeval image, was it God or what? It was the Son of God, and so it remains. And she says, it remains within ourselves. Imagine it yourself. Go out to meet it, and joyfully will it rush towards you. Joyful will the path be. Gradually coming nearer and nearer to each other, you will one day encounter each other. You will unite. Safeguard your primeval image. Do not give it over to others for their own delight. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. I'm just sitting with that for a second too, because it's powerful, you know?
Safeguard. She said safeguard this image. And I keep on hearing, like, yeah, safeguard the purity, safeguard it. Don't let that
Mm,
purity get tainted, you know? Totally. It's our pure image, our pure
look at
pristine
this. And all the doubt you were mentioning, like Vladimir kind of goes back to it. He goes, it looks like you're on your own, Anastasia. But all the same, you're placing your hopes on something. What are you placing your hopes on? Where, Anastasia? You know her reply? On my very own primeval image. And on your primeval image, Vladimir. On the primeval nature of those images of the people building kinstomanes. Those who
Mm.
will in the future set off to meet their true image. Right. And so talking about the power of imagery, we have an image within us of how God envisioned us as his son or his daughter. There's something in God's mind, like this image of his dream of us that is so pure within us, right? It kind of makes me think of in book 10 as well, when the dark brother and the light brother are talking, and the dark brother shows this image of a woman who is working at a cash register. And then he says, this is what she looks like stuck in the technocratic world, right? And she's all tired and aching and miserable working at this cash register. And he says, now look what she looks like if she lived in the rational world, and she's this beautiful woman running through the mountain streams. Her hair is flowing. She's radiant and healthy and beautiful and full of joy. But that's her primeval image, her pure image of who she is. Like, but it's there even though she's working at the cash register, right? And it's still within her. And even us, like whatever circumstances we're in life, that part of us is still alive inside of us because that's God's hope for us. That's how he envisioned each of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm going to jump in here and say it can't be taken away. It can't. That pure original spark design, it can't fully be taken away. It can't. Think of, and you might say, give me proof, Ariane, for this. How much more proof do we need? It's been billions of years. Billions of years with so much effort to try and take that away from us, and it has not fully happened. It has not. It hasn't. So this is our
Mm,
proof, if we do want proof, this is it. This is an astounding proof right here. Just the fact that we're having this
mm,
conversation is a demonstration that it's not just us having these inspired, pure-hearted conversations. It's communities all over the world. It's like hundreds of millions of people everywhere. It's not um that spark of purity of light is substantially superior, greater, stronger, more potent than any of this attempts from shadow. And what a another demonstration of the godliness of us. This is it's like waking up from a dream and then having to ask yourself, really, really, like, really, is this really what's going on, and is this really true, and what if it was true? And then, here's the invitation to really start um, exploring this for yourself. We take a journey now, privately, with this, certainly with other people and communities, of course, like what we're doing, but privately to really look at what this feels like. I'm inspired to now today have a meditation with myself and bring in that living image of me, and
mm.
really interact with her and really feel her, hold her, see her, why not? That's kind of an invitation there from the reading you just shared with us. That's what Anastasia's kind of indirectly asking us to do.
Right. There's been moments where, like, I don't know, just living my life or whatever, that little story from book 10 of dark brother showing the two images of the woman would pop up in my mind. And
Yeah.
it made me think, like, it made me start to visualize myself. Like, what does the pure, free, divine version of myself look like? You know,
Yeah.
because I think that I'm in the direction of that. Like, I'm going in that direction, but I'm not there yet. So, like, what is that? That hasn't been fully materialized, rather. It's not like the image doesn't exist. It does, but has it been fully materialized yet at the moment? No, but I'm on the way, right? And that's how the material world works. It takes time to materialize things, you know?
Yeah.
But and I think like what would I be? You know, and I visualize myself of like being in the Garden of Eden and being so free and happy and full of joy and you know, like what does that look like? And that part of me is real. Like that's what God wants for me. That's what his intention was when he made the world.
Hmm.
He wanted us to be free and happy like that every single moment, forever in perpetuity, and ever increasing joy and love and happiness. Like, not only just some perpetual state of joy that is the same, it was increasing joy and love for infinity. And, you know, it's a staggering proposition because it seems so far from where we are. But it's like, we are going in that direction, and that image within ourselves is what gives us the strength to continue going there, you know. So
Hmm.
it's just a really interesting idea, and that's an image, right? But when we connect with it, it gives us power, it gives us strength, it imparts information to us, it gives consciousness to us, it uplifts us, it heals us, right? It's such a fascinating thing. Like this invisible image has so much power, right?
Oh yeah. 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 What an inspiring conversation. I have entertained new thoughts in my mind I've never thought of before. And I'm filled with a
Me
lot of
too.
hope. Yeah, I'm filled with a lot of hope and I feel closer, even closer to this image. We work a lot with this image in the global live imageries. We go and visit ourselves. We go into that realm, that Kin's domain heavenly realm
Yep.
altogether. And then we witness each other in the imagery. So it's like there's
Mm.
something about the witness, there's something about the observer that really helps anchor things into motion and into reality. So I feel this connection with her, with that image of me. But now, after this conversation, I'm really inspired to build even stronger relations and communication with her, and even in a bit of a different way. She is
Mm.
me. She is alive all the time. It's impossible to take her apart from me, and it's impossible um, for her to ever die. It's impossible. Gosh, can it get any
Right.
better? It's
It's
incredible.
God's dream. And to get rid of that image, we'd have to literally get rid of God himself, which is impossible
It's
because that's what
impossible.
he's holding for us.
Yeah.
That's what he's holding for us all the time. He's the brilliant, beautiful dreamer behind the beautiful life of all of us, right? Like he is holding this desire for each and every one of us all the time.
And
Infinite.
this is
He's
this
unfathomable.
and this is why the priests wanted the science of imagery vaulted. This is why, everyone, because look at what we're talking about here. This is the
Yeah.
vocabulary of freedom.
Mm.
It's utter and total freedom. And I would even say like it's heaven. It's the vocabulary of like realizing heaven, heavenly potential, and like the truth of the design. And it's amazing.
Honestly.
It's
You
incredible.
know, and there's a part in there's this chapter in book 10. For those of you who haven't read book 10, you know, we've been quoting it. Some people don't know it exists. I was stupidly lucky to get a physical copy, but you should try to print this out, or if not, read it if you haven't, reread it if you have. But there's this chapter, coming face to face with our primeval image, right? And in preparation for this conversation, I wanted to like reread some of this, and God, she just gets right into it. You know, she finishes telling the story to Vladimir about Anasta and Anasta's life. This is right after that conversation, and She says if information appeared, then it follows that its source also exists. And she says to Vladimir, information is an image. An image is information. If someone decides he wants to erase information within you, he'll try to prove to you that the image doesn't exist in reality. Whoa. And as soon as you agree with the image's lack of reality, then you yourself erase the information you've taken in from the image, right? And this like goes into the idea of doubt again, right? The technocratic system or whatever tries to make people doubt the reality of this, of her, right? There's all these articles. Vladimir made up Anastasia. Kin's domains aren't successful. Blah, blah, blah. Like, doubt that this exists, doubt that our history was as beautiful as it was, that the world was full of happy families as it was, make everyone think that we were all barbaric savages and
Yeah.
idiots, and we evolved from a little soup, and I was a little lizard with legs, and I used to be a bacteria, and then I became a divine man somehow. Um, okay, you know, like make us think that we're nothing and insignificant, make us doubt all of our origins, to completely mislead us, right? But it's like that it's so interesting. She says it so succinctly. If someone wants to erase information within you, they try to convince you that the image doesn't exist. Because if you have these images, they give information and feelings, you know? Um, wow. I'm just sitting with this. It's like, guys, as we're doing this conversation, Ariane and I are just we're going through it right now. you know, we're definitely like processing this together live in the moment.
We're having a big realizations here, everyone. And so when we say that the root is doubt, now let's look at what the opposite of doubt is. The opposite of doubt is trust. So I am called to guard and embody and feed that trust like I've never done before because
Mm,
of everything we've just shared here. Because of everything we just shared here, it's our trust, our trusting relationship that's the most truthful and most aligned with the original design and intent and the immaculate concept. So it's all about the trust. And I feel really empowered by
mm,
that. And it's written in the books. In book four, it says that and I'm not giving word for word here. Creators
mhm.
saying, "Look, I love you so much. You're made in my image, and you don't even have to know how this works. Like, don't even. It's
Right.
all here for the love of you and the good of you and the good of all life. So
Mm,
how amazing is that? Can we just trust that it can be
mm.
that good and that beautiful and that pure? You know?
Right. Right. And this makes me think of back again to Anastasia's forefather. And I know we got to wrap up soon, but I wanted to kind of tie a little bow on the conversation here.
Yeah.
It makes me think back again to Anastasia's forefather, and he's explaining to the high priest, like, how do you create, right? He says, what you yourself feel to be, that's what you're going to create. Well, if we think about the universe and the world and life, who thought of all of it, right? It's God. And look at how unfathomably beautiful all of it is. Look at the flowers, look at the sun and the moon and the stars and the trees and the leaves and the animals and love itself and human love and children and friendship and growing up as a child and all of these wonderful gifts that God thought of. He thought of all those little things, all those little happinesses, all those little joyful things for us to experience, every beautiful thing, what comes from his mind. How beautiful is that being? How unbelievably beautiful is the being who thought of all of this, right? He is magnificent beyond conception. He's so perfect, his mind and the beauty of his mind. And so if we have faith in who he is and what he thought of, right, and the fact that we're a part of it and that it's all for us, like to what you're saying, Ariane, that like this is all for you, right? You don't need to know how it all works and all the mechanics behind it, but have faith that it was made for the good of you, because it definitely was. It was made by this unbelievably, unfathomably beautiful being who is with us and loves us in a way that we can't even fully comprehend, you know?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, can dispel doubt. That can dispel doubt. It can.
Yeah.
That degree of love and purity can dispel anything. Yeah, I'm going to invite myself and everyone here to really sit with all of this we shared today. I'm definitely going to be sitting with this,
Mm,
Gabriel, because that was so powerful, the thought journey we went on. And I feel very different right
yep.
now and a lot
Me
closer.
too.
Yeah, a lot closer to my heart, way closer and closer to my dream
Mhm.
of seeing the world and Kin's domains. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you, Ariane, for going on this journey with me. To our dear listeners and friends who've made it this far with us, thanks for going on the journey with us. And we look forward to more. Like we've got this infinite topic that we could spend a lifetime talking about. And we're only, maybe to us in the moment, it seems like things are blowing our minds, but we're only scratching the surface. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Like who knows how far we've gotten, but we've got so much more to talk about, and I can't wait to keep exploring it. Thank you to all of our friends listening. I will do the stereotypical YouTube thing. Subscribe if you want to see more. Like the video to help promote it to other people who would
Mhm.
want to see this and help us out in the algorithm. Share with your friends if you think that they might benefit from this. If you're listening on a podcast or something, subscribes, so and all these little things, if you comment, it helps promote us that we can share it with other people. And remember that we've got all these different ways for you to connect with Ringing Cedars readers. Sign up for our email lists, stay in tune with events, Ariane's guided imagery, all of the community calls, in-person events. We have our Ringing Cedars community platform. You can sign up, look for your soulmate, look for other readers around you. um, Donate to the foundation if you want to support our work and see things grow. We're doing all that we can, all that we're physically able to do, to grow the movement internationally. There's so much to come. AnastasiaMarket.com if you want a cool t-shirt with a ringing cedar on the back. You can't really see it here, but it's got a big ringing cedar there if you want to spread the message. So, we guys, and we don't do this for money or anything. We don't get paid from this stuff. But we
Ah,
just want to support the work around the world. So thank you guys for coming on this journey with us. Leave a comment if you found an interesting insight, if there's something you want to share, because this is a discussion. We're all on a learning journey together. Like I'm excited to hear from you guys and what you've thought about, and because we're all figuring these things out together collectively. So thank you all for your attention. Thanks for being with us. Ariane, you're the best. Couldn't thank you more. Do you have anything you want to say to our friends before we get out of here?
that's about it for me. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm so honored to be here and to be speaking about this vaulted science of millennia. I am very honored and
Yeah,
grateful to cover more with all of you. Thank you. Yeah.
awesome. Bye, everybody.
Bye.